There's a subtle shift that occurs in modern philosophy, a shift from asking what is just to asking what is inevitable. For much of classical philosophy, morality stands above history. Justice judges events, conscience resists power, truth critiques the age. But in the 19th century, a different idea takes shape, the idea that history itself is rational, that it unfolds according to a logic, that what emerges necessarily. At the center of this transformation stands George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and it is this transformation that Karl Popper believed was deeply dangerous. What Hegel thought history was. Hegel did not think history was random. He believed history was the unfolding of freedom, not chaos, not accident, but development. For Hegel, reality is not static. It is dynamic. It moves through contradiction, through conflict, through tension. This is the dialectic. An idea emerges. It generates its opposite. Through the struggle, something higher resolves the tension. This is not mere politics. For Hegel, it is metaphysical. History is the self-realization of spirit, Geist, freedom becoming conscious of itself. And crucially, freedom does not exist in isolation. It exists through institutions, through law, through the state. The state, for Hegel, is not merely coercion, it is ethical life, Sittlichkeit, the structure within which individuals realize freedom. Here is the line that troubled later critics. What is rational is actual, and what is actual is rational. Hegel did not mean that everything that exists is morally good. He meant that reality unfolds according to reason. But once that idea enters political life, it becomes ambiguous. Here is the shift Popper worries about. If history is rational, and if the state is the vehicle of historical development, then opposing the state may appear irrational. Dissent can begin to look like regression. Criticism can begin to look like ignorance. Hegel himself was not advocating dictatorship. He supported constitutional monarchy. He was not writing a blueprint for tyranny. Popper believed something more subtle was happening. Hegel did not simply elevate the state. He relocated moral authority from the individual conscience to the unfolding of history itself. And once history becomes the tribunal of right and wrong, the individual no longer stands in judgment over power. He stands within it. In The Open Society and Its Enemies, Karl Popper launches a sustained critique of Hegel. He accuses him of obscurity, of mystification, of intellectual theatricality. But Popper's deeper concern is methodological. He calls Hegel a historicist. By historicism, Popper means the belief that history unfolds according to discoverable laws, and that these laws allow prediction of the future. If history has a direction, if it has a logic, if it has an endpoint, then politics becomes implementation, not debate, not reform, implementation. For Popper, this is fatal, because once the future is treated as inevitable, the present becomes negotiable. Individuals become instruments, Sacrifice becomes rationalized. Opposition becomes obstruction. History becomes judge, and when history judges, no appeal is possible. The disagreement between Hegel and Popper is not merely political, it is epistemological. Hegel believes reason unfolds in history. Popper believes reason must criticize history. Hegel believes the whole gives meaning to the part. Popper believes the individual is morally prior to the whole. Hegel sees contradiction as developmental. Popper sees fallibility as permanent. For Hegel, history moves toward greater freedom. For Popper, no such guarantee exists. Freedom survives only through institutions that allow criticism, reform, reversal. The difference is subtle but immense. Hegel trusts the arc, Popper distrusts inevitability. Was Popper fair? Many scholars argue Popper misread Hegel, that he projected 20th century catastrophe backward, that Hegel's state was not totalitarian, that his philosophy was more nuanced than Popper allowed. There is truth in this. Hegel did not foresee the regimes that later invoked historical destiny. He did not design their machinery. But Popper was writing after catastrophe, after fascism, after the collapse of liberal Europe. He saw what happens when history becomes prophecy, and so he read Hegel not only as a philosopher, but as a turning point. Why this still matters. The danger Popper identifies is not confined to one thinker. It appears whenever we hear, "The arc of history bends. This is inevitable. There is no alternative. You are on the wrong side of history." These phrases are not inherently tyrannical, but they carry a temptation. The temptation to substitute inevitability for argument. When history becomes destiny, criticism becomes heresy, and that is where freedom begins to erode. Popper's warning is not about one philosopher. It is about a pattern. The moment we treat history as destiny, we begin to lose the safeguards that protect criticism. Hegel believed freedom unfolds through history. Popper insisted freedom survives only through institutions that allow dissent, reform, reversal. But Hegel's philosophy did not end with Hegel. It flowed forward into another thinker who would radicalize the dialectic, who would turn history not merely into development, but into revolution. Karl Marx. And if Hegel saw reason unfolding through the state, Marx saw history unfolding through class struggle. In the next episode, we follow that transformation from the dialectic to historical materialism, from philosophy to program.